Hi everyone, and welcome back. If you've been following along, then you'll recognize my tracking spreadsheet. Just wanted to talk a little bit about what my plans for today are, and just so you can see how I keep track of stuff. I'm going to be focusing on these 42-day bins. This is 6 weeks now that these bins have been set up, allowing the finished castings to be depopulated by newly hatched worms and existing worms that were still in the material. The time's come for these to be harvested. I've been trying to assess their readiness state for a few days now, and I think that these two are pretty much ready to go. What I'm going to do with the worms that come out of these is I guess I'm going to launch a new bin, and that'll be kind of the last bin in this blue series. After that, I'll just come up with some sort of a new color, but you know, in my mind, this was more or less a test. So anything that's not one of these colorful ones, like this gray here, was the vertical migration to see how the worms behave moving up vertically through the holes in the bottom of a bin up into a new bin. And it works, kind of, but in my mind, it seems like it left a great number of worms behind. And it just made access to the material obstructed because there's a bin on top. More recently, I started adopting the horizontal feeding methods. In my estimation, it's head and shoulders the better solution. The castings will go outside into the garden, and the worms will be set up into a final blue bin. I'll just reuse one of these larger bins that the castings are in right now. So, all right, enough of the spreadsheet. Let's get down to the wormery and get to work on this. Okay, so what we're talking about today is these two bins down here. These bins for the past 6 weeks have been holding finished compost, and they're quite heavy. And they're not even being treated as regular bins anymore. They're just finished compost as far as I'm concerned. And the time was being allowed for the worms to exit the material into this new feeding zone. So we're just going to be pulling the worms out of the box and then just pouring the castings over into a bin that's going to go outside. Extraction, that's going to be the first step on both of these bins. So let's get some gloves on and get these worms out of here. Okay, this worked pretty nicely last time. Just sort of protecting the finished castings from contamination. A lot of stuff down here still. Alright, we'll get a better look at it when we get out of this narrow little strip. We'll get it into this box here. Then we'll be able to observe what's happening. So it's mostly food, some bedding, and some leaf cover. I'm going to take this drier material off the top and try to use it as a covering once we get them out of here. Tell you, when I launch these into a new bin later today, I think the bin's not going to need to consist of much. Maybe a little bit of bedding, because there's going to be a fair amount of food coming across. Let's put this over here. And I think this plastic bin here is going to get pretty much filled up once we do the other bin as well. Okay. So we'll put this aside until we get to the next bin. But that's it. This is all finished castings as far as I'm concerned. Looks great, and we'll dump it off into the buckets later. We'll just get the other bin out here and extract the worms from that one as well. Again, take this stuff to cap it off at the end. Give them a little cover while they're in this temporary bin before we move them over to their new home. Maybe I should have wore 2 gloves. Watermelon. Okay, this little temporary bin is at capacity. We're going to set these little guys aside. They'll come into play later when we launch off our new bin. But what we're left with is 2 nice size containers of finished castings. So I'm going to pour these over into buckets and move those outside, clean off these bins. And then we could start thinking about rebuilding one of these bins, maybe this one, and launching it with these worms. Okay, that's one down. You could see that the compost fills up almost one full bucket like that. So I've got another bucket similar size right there, same size, and should fit equally as well. So I'll do the next one, and we'll pick it up where we left off. But before I dump the last of it into the bucket, you could see it's certainly not worm free. There's worms in the material still, especially near the feeding zone edge where I couldn't really create a distinct cutoff point. But, you know, ultimately they're the winners because they'll be set free. They'll be doing my garden a lot of good, aerating my soil and making things better. So, all right, we're almost there. If you treat one of those buckets as 5 gallons, which is what I think its capacity is, then we got 10 gallons of compost there ready to go. All right, so the bins, I took them outside so I could hose them down with the garden hose, and I also grabbed a couple things to make our new bin with. This is material out of the compost tumbler and leaves, and the two bins are nice and clean. Like new. Okay, so we'll rig these up and launch the worms. Now, get this box of leaves from previous builds. I'll lay that down as part of the new fresh bedding. Take a few pieces of shredded paper. This is the garden compost. Screened it out of the compost tumbler outside, threw it into a 5-gallon bucket, so it was never on the ground. But there were a bunch of worms in it. Let's just move this stuff a little bit around. I would think that this stuff is going to be really delectable to them. Stuff that's already been sort of composted by microbes, and I guess partially by worms. They're probably leaving a lot more stuff that they can just get direct access to and eat right away. But let's bring in the worms. I'm just going to do my best to make this a clean sweep. Just dump it straight over, and maybe I'll jostle the pile around to level it off and to expose some worms, but then that'll be it. We'll be done. Here we go. And you got to remember, this was straight out of the feeding zone of two compost bins. So there's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of food for them. So just the material that they came over in is what I'm treating as their most current feeding. This must be some sort of bedding material. Try to push that down low. For a new bin, this is a great number of worms, so they'll make quick work of all this food that just got dumped in here with them, and then they'll start feeding on new stuff. So that's why I won't hesitate when it comes time to feed again in the next week or two. I'll just get this bin right onto the regular feeding schedule with the rest of my bins. Okay. Man, they're quick. Looks like they've already made their way down into the, here's some nice big lumps of them. Look at them all. They sure vanish quickly. Got a few more piles of undisturbed stuff over here. Maybe we'll find a couple more concentrations of them here and there. But then we'll let them be. We'll let them subside down into the material and get cozy in their new homes. Okay, so before we call it a day and cover these guys up, we need to christen this as a new bin, right? So today is Halloween, the last day of the month in October, so and I didn't keep to the formatting that I decided on earlier, so alright, so piling on the leaves here at the end for cover, as I always do. So I'll just give this thing a sheet of newspaper and cover it up. A piece of cardboard. And find a spot on the shelf for it. So, that's it for today, everybody. Thanks for coming along and helping me launch my new bin and harvest my new compost batches. So that's it for now. Thanks again for coming, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate that, and hopefully we'll see you back here next time. Take care. Bye now.